Upgrading and tuning street cars in Forza Motorsport is quite a different process to tuning your favorite race cars in the spec series of multiplayer. And that is because the biggest impact comes not from fine-tuning, but from upgrading car parts. You can get so much more power, grip and general handling from upgrading. It's quite insane if you compare it to the small impact fine-tuning has. Upgrading in motorsport is mostly done to discrete intervals, the performance index classes, or PI for short. While in single player you can just upgrade to your heart's content and the AI will be on a similar PI level. In Rivals and the open series of multiplayer you want to hit the maximum in your PI class. You don't want to bring a car of say 480 PI to a C-class race when you could just upgrade it further to the maximum of 500 PI. So today I want to get started in trying to teach you how to upgrade and tune non-race cars. As this is quite a vast topic, today I want to cover the basics while trying to build up the best car for the lowest PI class, E at 300 PI. Even though this might seem like a very low, rarely used class, we can still learn a lot from it and apply it to higher PI classes in the future by answering these questions. Number 1. What cars should you take for a particular PI class? Number 2. When do you go for more power versus better handling? And number 3. What takes priority while upgrading and how do you decide which parts to take? I hope you will join me as we try to answer these questions. If you are new around here and find this to be helpful, please consider helping me out by subscribing to the channel. And thank you so much if you are already subscribed, it goes a long way in supporting the channel. I want this video to be the start of a series on upgrading different cars in Forza Motorsport. So I would also really love to get your feedback. What do you want to see in future episodes? Do you have any experience in upgrading cars and can maybe share any tips with us? And what's your upgrading process like? Let us know in the comments and I hope that in the end I can compile all the information we gather together into a comprehensive guide for upgrading and tuning. But let's now get started on building our E-Class car and taking it to Rivals to try to get a good position on the leaderboards. The first question we need to answer is which car to take. Apart from taking a car you like and want to build up, the main deciding factor for me is always headroom. Does the car still have enough PI left to spend before we hit the maximum in our target class? If it doesn't, we would be very limited on the upgrades we can install, which would not be ideal. Unless the car is already very good for its class, I would always recommend to maybe target a higher PI class for your car if it doesn't have enough headroom for the current one. So cars that are already almost at the maximum for E-Class, like this Renault Clio, I would rather build for D-Class or above instead of trying to make it work for E-Class. There are still plenty of cars we can choose from for E-Class. Still, not all cars will perform the same, some will just be better for certain classes. A good way to check which ones these are the Rivals leaderboards. You can access them from the Open Time Attack tab by going to one of the tracks and pressing the button to open the leaderboard. As you can see, depending on the track, there are quite some different cars used here. One stood out to me though as being used more often than others. The 1990 Mazda MX-5 Miata. And I can understand why. It still has 32 PI worth of headroom and felt already quite good without any upgrades, so I decided that this would be our E-Class car. I have decided on Silverstone National as our test track, as it is not all that long, but still has some different corner types for us to tackle. Sadly, we will have to drive the car for quite some time without any major upgrades, because of the new progression system. I'm still not a fan of this, as it just seems like an unnecessary grind. But it will give us an opportunity to figure out the answer to question number 2. Do we go for more power, better handling, or a mixture of both? Driving the car stock, and with adding incremental upgrades over the time of leveling the car, I noticed 2 things. The mechanical grip, so the direct grip from the tires, didn't feel all that bad. The car was definitely lacking in power though, and felt kind of sluggish. 2 things can help mitigate this. Just installing more power and reducing the car's weight. While more power is always good, reducing the weight takes priority for me a lot of the time. That is because it helps both in making the car handle better and be faster at the same time because of an improved power to weight ratio. So the order of priority for this car for me is number 1, reduce weight, number 2, increase power, and number 3, improve general handling. There are some things though that I will almost always install in any car because it's just so good and doesn't cost much. The cost is also a big factor in choosing upgrades. And I don't mean the cost in terms of car points, you will get enough of those over time. I mean the cost of increased PI for how much the upgrade improves the car, which is also the main factor when trying to answer question number 3. Which parts do you actually upgrade and which ones do you skip? Let me show you what I mean by talking you through my finished build for the Miata, step by step. We start by heading to the performance section of our completely stock Mazda Miata. There we will take a look at all the parts which I find almost non-negotiable, so parts that I will put on almost every car. The first of which will be found in the Drivetrain section. Upgrading to a race transmission is almost always a good idea. Not only does this let you fine-tune your gears, but it also makes the shift times way quicker. And it doesn't cost us much in terms of PI, as you can see in the top right, only about 2 this time. Next up is the differential. While this doesn't necessarily improve performance, it will let you fine-tune your differential in the end, and it basically costs no PI at all. Clutch and driveline we will leave alone for now. Instead, we will head to Aero and Apperance. The rear wing and front bumper are almost always nice to install, not only because this will let you adjust aero in the fine-tuning, but it also has another benefit. Let me show you. As I change the rear wing, take a look at the performance index at the top. As I install the best one, the performance index actually goes down, which is great for us. That is because it just produces more drag when it's not fine-tuned, and it is heavier. We can check that by toggling the right-hand window. You can do that by pressing R on your keyboard or Y on your controller. And you will want to head to the car stats window. There you can see that the weight is red, so it went up, meaning that it's worse. And if we check back to the normal wing, we were actually at exactly 1000 kilograms. With a new wing, we are at 4 kilograms more. So worse in terms of the game, which means the PI index did decrease, which is good for us, as we also can fine-tune the wing and make it less of a problem in terms of drag. So let's install the rear wing and do the same for the front bumper. You will also see that the weight goes up, but also the PI in the top goes down. So nice. Next, we will head to the platform and handling section. There, the first thing I always install are the anti-roll bars, both for the front and the rear. This improves weight and also lets you fine-tune the roll bars in the fine-tuning section after you're done with upgrading. Springs and dampeners are also always nice to upgrade, as this not only improves handling but also lets you fine-tune your suspension in the end. Just take care not to take the drift, but the race suspension. Brakes are a similar story, as this will also let you fine-tune your brakes, all the while improving brake performance quite a lot. Now let's head to one of the biggest parts for increasing this car's performance, the weight reduction. As I said before, reducing the weight of the car does not only improve the handling, but also the performance in terms of power to weight ratio, making the car accelerate faster, which is awesome. So let's take the best one for now. Let's now take a quick look at the tire section as well. Here, increasing the tire width can improve mechanical grip, but it does come at a cost of performance index as well as an increase in weight, so it didn't feel like this was necessary for this car. Improving the tire compound is normally a very good idea, but in this case, as you can see, as this costs a lot of PI, I wasn't able to get to the race tires while staying in E-Class, so I didn't feel like improving this was all that necessary, since I also wanted to improve power. So let's now actually take a look at that and improve the car's performance by going to the Fuel and Air tab. I found that normally upgrading parts that both increase power and reduce weight, like this exhaust, are a very good idea. But after a lot of experimenting, I actually found a better solution here. Take a look at the power and weight now and notice that we are not even in E-Class anymore. So let's go back to the stock exhaust and actually explore a different option. For that, we will head all the way to the right to the conversion tab. Here I found that actually changing the car's aspiration is a very good idea. We could have gone for a single turbo, a positive displacement supercharger, but I went for the centrifugal supercharger. This increases our power and torque, while increasing weight a little bit, but not costing all that much in terms of PI. If we then go back to the first tab, which is Fuel and Air, we have the option to upgrade this centrifugal supercharger even more, which seemed to me very efficient in terms of PI cost to power output. So I went with the best upgrade here, which gives us a lot more power than we had before, while also increasing torque with just a little bit of added weight. But we are now a little bit over budget in terms of PI, as you can see in the top. To get back into our target class of E300, I did take a look at which parts I could maybe remove again to stay in E-Class. In the end, I went to platform and handling and actually downgraded both the brakes one step and also the springs and dampeners one step. With that, we are exactly in our target class of E300. Yes, we are losing out on a little bit of handling and brake performance, but it was worth it in the end to me because we got a lot more power for that. Let's now quickly take a look at the parts that we didn't consider for this build. In the Fuel and Air section, you can upgrade more power if that's something that you need, but be aware that some parts actually increase weight, so be careful with that. In the engine section, it's pretty much the same, and you can upgrade power here, as well as you have the flywheel, which can reduce weight, which is also a nice thing, and it doesn't cost that much PI, so if you just are a few points short, this is a nice upgrade to take. In the platform and handling section, there is the chassis reinforcement and roll cage. This can improve handling by making the car stiffer, but it increases weight, so consider carefully. Ballast is something that you might need in cars which have a bad weight distribution. You can see that in the car stats at the bottom. So if you put that in, the distribution evens out to 50-50, but it increases weight. We already went over everything in the tire section, but in the wheel section you can also make changes by changing out the rim, and that will sometimes decrease the weight depending on which rim you choose, but this will always correlate with an increase in PI. So for this car I couldn't do anything here because we were already at 300. In the drivetrain section, you can take a look if you are just missing out on a couple of points on PI, because both the clutch and the driveline will increase performance just a little bit, while only costing a little bit in terms of PI as well. In the Aero and Apperance tab, you can also take a look at the rear bumper, which will in this case just increase weight and increase PI, so I didn't take a look at this. You can also upgrade the hood, which will also be a small weight decrease here and increase PI, so again nothing we will take. And also the side skirts aren't really helpful here. And that brings us to the last tab, which is the conversion, where you can do a full engine swap, which in this case wasn't really an option because all the other engines were way too high in terms of performance, so we couldn't fit our target class of E. And you can do a drivetrain swap, in this case to an all-wheel drive from rear-wheel drive, which will increase weight and PI class. So again, not something that I want to do, even though it will probably be a little bit easier to drive. And that is my full build for the Mazda Miata 4 E-Class. Let's now quickly take a look at the fine-tuning as well. I will not go into detail here since this is not the focus of this video. You can pause at any time and I will refer you to the details in my tuning guide that I already made. I will link it for you on the screen right now. You can also see that there are some parts which I just can't adjust because I didn't put in the parts that let me actually adjust, like the race suspension, for example. Let's now take a look at the best lap that I was able to do in the Mazda Miata on Silverstone National with the upgrade and tuning that I just showed you in a lot of detail. And here you can see turn 1 I think doing quite well, going very close to the apex and then also taking all the track space on the left side. And we're heading now towards Maggots, where I think I braked maybe a little bit early, could have been a little bit later and did more of trail braking, but I think it's fine. Getting the apex quite nicely and going on power quite early, so I get a good exit here onto the straight. And I can tell you that I did try other builds with a little bit less power and more handling or just a little bit less weight, but they always were losing out so much on the straight that I think this combination worked the best for me. Heading into Brooklands here, I think doing quite okay, not the best, but I think quite fine. Here in Nuffield, I think I had a little bit of a small moment and that always costs you a little bit. And also the exit is not the best maybe. But yeah, I was able to do like 2/10 better in other laps. So definitely could be improved, but this was the best lap that I was able to do in just the time that I did spend on the track here. I'm also gonna show you the lap once again from another perspective, from the replay, so we can take a look from behind how that looks and, well, just see how the car performs here. And I think it did perform quite well. And we're gonna take a look afterwards how well I did in terms of my position on the leaderboard as well. But yeah, I can tell you that I was quite happy with how the car turned out. As I said, definitely the compromise being that I had to remove the race suspension and the race brakes did hurt the car a little, but the added power was really beneficial and I think worth it in the end. So yeah, let me know what you think. Do you think you can improve this build? Is there something that you maybe would have done differently? I would really love to hear from you. And well, also maybe if you've tried other cars in this class, how they perform, how the upgrading process was like there. Because I feel like the Mazda Miata was very interesting in terms of how you were doing your upgrades. But yeah, we are just taking a look at the end of this lap. And then we are gonna take a quick look at my position on the leaderboard. And you can see here a lot of Mazda MX-5s on the leaderboard here, but I was able to do quite well, I think, at least for my particular skill level. I'm not the best driver by any means, but I was able to place number 33 here, and that is top 2% of players on this leaderboard, which I think is quite nice. There's definitely time to improve here, but as I said, I am happy with the time that I did, and I think the build of the car really helped me get that time. So, if you want to try this build yourself, you can of course just copy what I did in this video, or you can just use the build that I also shared on Forza. You can find it under my username HG Racing. And with that, I just want to ask the questions again that I did ask in the beginning. What would you like to see in future episodes of this series? Do you have any experience in upgrading cars that you can maybe share with us? And what's your process like? Definitely let us know so we can all learn together, which is, I think, the best way to learn anyway. All that's left for me is to ask you to maybe subscribe to the channel if you found this video interesting or helpful. And I will see you in the next video. I've been HG Racing. Thanks a lot for watching.